Yeah, it's interesting because you sound wide awake, and I thought after flying all night you'd be sleeping.
Well, I must admit I'm a little snook. I bloody lost me mobile phone as well. I left it in the flipping in the lounge or something, and you know what that's like. You might as well say bye-bye. It's not going to turn up.
Oh, man.
No, it's just a pain in the ass. It's just an inconvenience. It's nothing. It's always where you got to look at it. It's just something that you are starting to depend on.
First thing I want to say is about the book, Rockers and Rollers, Full-Throttle Memoir. It does such a great job of just bridging the parallels between rock and roll and cars. And I got to tell you this, too. The audiobook is amazing because I'll tell you the truth, Brian, it's like a one-man show more than somebody reading a book. It really is. You perform. You actually perform on it.
Well, I didn't, it's just something that I enjoy, really, and I just sat and read it, and I really did enjoy myself, putting myself in the place of the characters that were in the book, and because I knew them, and I don't know why I do it, but I instantly go into their accent, whether it be German or he's Scottish or American, and I'm not saying they're very good accents, but I tend to do that, and it brings it all back to us when when I listen to it.
Well, you got that theatrical kind of background in a way. I mean, you do have that performance side that a lot of people don't see with just your rock and roll.
Well, it's just, I just enjoy it. I mean, I had such a grand time, and it only took like a day or something to read it, and because they asked me to do it, and now it's out on, I think it's Audible Books.
Yeah, that's where I bought my copy on Audible, and it's great. I mean, I have the book too, but you really want to get the audio book. You're going to hear some samples later on. Well, let's first of all, happy birthday. You recently had a birthday.
I did, me son. I turned 64 years of age.
Amazing.
And who would have thunk? And people are saying, "Oh, wow, man, it's gigging." I said, what are you talking about? I'm 64, I'm fit, I'm healthy. I've lost so many cool friends to just nasty sicknesses and stuff. And I said, the way to look at it is when I'm 74, I'll be saying, "Damn it, I wish I was 64." And that's where you got to look at it, I guess. You just got to just knock it on the chin and just live every day you can get your hands on, and just grasp the day, sir. And that's it.
It's the thing what I appreciate so much about the way you wrote this book is, like you, if you think back and try to memorize, well, I couldn't write a book, I don't remember all the details. You discovered early on, when you would think about things about your cars and any experience with a car, you had this vivid memory. So tell everybody the story, how the idea for the book came about.
Well, I go for lunch in London with a friend of mine, Jimmy Neal, who's an actor and singer, and his manager would come along, a guy called Tarquin Gotch. And we'd chat away at the table, and he'd always go, I say, Brian, that's very, very funny. You should write this down. And I said, I haven't got a good memory, Doug. I said, my memory's shot. I said, I don't know what the heck is wrong with us, but, And he said, yeah, but every time you mention a car, you remember. And I said, that's funny, you're right, I do. It was like, because Jimmy was saying to me, he's going, remember when we went to that party in about 1981 and you were dating that girl? And I said, he said, what was her name? I said, I cannot remember. He said, you were a hot item then. I went, gosh darn it, I can't remember. And he said, you were at the party and you fell down the stairs and you hurt yourself badly. I went, yeah. And the ambulance came to get you. And I went, no, I cannot remember.
Yeah.
You were drunk. He said, and then you fell out the ambulance at a traffic stop. And I went, no, I cannot remember that. And then another car came up behind and hit you when you fell out the ambulance. And I went, I cannot remember that. And he said, you had the Mini. And I went, oh, Pauline. It was that stupid kind of thing that made me think, this. So what I did was, of all the cars, because believe you me, the cars I had were bangers, we call them in England. They were cheap. Anything to get you from A to B, before they fell to bits, and because we didn't have any money, so.
Mm-hmm.
And but each and every one of them was a little part of my life, and that's why I just wrote about them, and then I suddenly realized how funny the stories are. When you've got nothing and you have a motor car, you get the worst look in the world.
You reminded me, the story is so cool, and I'm going to let you tell it, where your dad went to a junkyard and got a steering wheel and posted it on your bed, and because that made me remember things. Tell everybody that story.
Well, my dad used to, I used to hold my dad's hand, would walk up the street and all that. I'd go, Dad, look, there's a Ford Popular that has, 29 horsepower, and he'd be going, oh, Jesus. He said, well, you shut up about cars. I used to drive them nuts. And then so one day he went to the junkyard, and he asked for and he bought a steering wheel, just an old steering wheel, and he stuck a piece of wood through it and stuck it through the headboard of my bed, and put some pillars up. He says, yeah, right, get on there. And I sat on the pillars, and I got a hold of the wheel, and oh boy, I was gone. And I was just, I didn't see the wallpaper. All I saw was roads and country.
Yeah.
I had it all in my head, and I drove for hours.
Yeah.
But my father, I remember when he left the room, and he saw us, he just went, oh, thank God for that. And he was just so happy to get me out of his hair.
What I would do is I'd take my tricycle, and I'd lay it on its side, and I'd sit on the bar and use one of the back wheels as a steering wheel.
Yeah.
It worked,
Yeah, well, we used to put lollipop sticks in.
Yeah, I did that too.
To make it sound like, as I explained in the book, to make it sound like a motor car, but you've succeeded in making it sounding like some bees.
Hey, but I want everyone to know we're going to weave in rock and roll and, of course, cars, and talk about the life of this great guy, Brian Johnson. His book, Rockers and Rollers, a Full-Throttle Memoir, came out earlier in the year, but it is available as an audiobook, and it is highly recommended. I mean, it's so many great stories. We're going to touch on a lot of this. Just speaking in general about cars and rock and roll, talk about that. You could do a whole book on that.
Well, I think I said in one of the chapters.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
Yeah, I think I said in one of the chapters when I started, I just started a chapter about cars and music and all that. And the thing that really got me was rock and roll and cool cars started at exactly the same time, in the early 50s. When Elvis had the cool Cadillac, the convertible, and Ike Turner had the Rocket 88, and then cars were starting to get fins, and chrome was everywhere. I mean, it really, as a boy in England, and we saw these cars in the movies when we went down to see the Elvis movies or whatever, we couldn't believe it. We thought it was because we had still little black sedans from after the war. There wasn't much happening at the time.
Right.
And these things were just like, it was like spacecraft stuff, It was just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, we didn't realize that they were the worst driving cars on the planet, but that didn't matter. It just looked cool, But they were just dreams. We never saw them on the roads of the Northeast where we were. We just never saw them, They were just things from movies. But and then you got all the great songs from like the Beach Boys seemed to be obsessed with them. Little Deuce Coupe.
That had a big effect on me. You're right.
Yeah, and one of the songs, Little Deuce Coupe. If you read the lyric, honestly, you don't know whether to sing the song or build the car. I mean, it really is. They get right down to the details. But it's just it just all got together. Baby, You Can Drive My Car with the Beatles. I mean, right up to Springsteen's Pink Cadillac and all of that. They really do. Look, I can't explain it, but rock and roll and cars really do, or just music and cars.
Oh yeah, because
together well.
Because one of the best places in the world to listen to music is in your car too.
In your car,
right?
That's the thing. Since they got the system sorted out about 30 years ago,
right?
You could really listen. It was quite amazing. I remember being in Italy once to visit my cousin, Giacomo, and he had a little mini Innocenti. And he said, Brian, you must listen to this. I have a new system in my cars. And he pulled out this little drawer, and I kid you not, it was a record player, just for 45s. But this is what it was like. You could only hear it if you was going in a straight line. If you were not going, of course, the needle would just come straight up. It was fantastic, the things they were trying. And, but you could write another book on it.
You remember reverbs? Remember when people were putting reverbs in the car just to get a little, before stereo really?
Yeah. I remember all of that. I remember using two toilet rolls taped together and then sticking it on the little speaker and trying to create my own stereo system.
Oh, that's interesting. I never tried that one.
I thought I was brilliant. I thought nobody would ever think of this.
Well, to bring this up to where people can actually hear what we're talking about, You Shook Me All Night Long, which was the song one of the first songs you wrote, I guess, for AC.DC.
Yeah.
Really, there were lines taken out of your love of cars. Tell everybody the story, and Malcolm saying, "Hey, is this about cars or women?"
Well, the very first line he read, because I didn't sing it, I was just writing it down and looking over my shoulder, and it said she was a fast machine, she kept the motor clean, she was the best damn woman that I ever seen. And then he said, "That is a woman you're talking about, isn't it?" And I said, "Yeah." But I couldn't hide it very well. I mean, it's just, I was referring to a woman and a car as one and the same. Because women are very much like cars.
Sure.
Some of them have wonderful big headlights.
Mm-hmm.
And
some of them look great, but
some of them look great and sexy, and they take a lot, and they take a lot of luggage. So
that's right.
It's it was just one of them things, and I did it without thinking. I mean, I really did. I just wrote it down, and but that cause affect you. It's as simple as that. It does.
And just as we weave in and out of rock and roll, just for those who may not know the real history of the band, an amazing time after AC/DC lost Bon Scott and the band was trying to figure out what to do. They had a huge kind of cult following at the time, and they were breaking, and there was so much action, and all of a sudden, Bon's gone. And it turns out, I know you've told the story 100 times, but it's so compelling. It turns out you were a part of the band, Geordie, but Bon actually liked you as a singer. He knew of you and always spoke highly of you. And so you get a call for an audition, and it was an amazing story. To share that story.
Well, I had to go down, the first thing I got was a telephone call. I had my own little business up in Newcastle, and this woman came on the phone, and she said, "You're Brian Johnson?" And I said, "Who's this?" And she went, "Yeah, you're Brian Johnson." And I said, "Yes, I am, but who are you?" And she said, "I cannot tell you." She said, "You must come to London to think with a group." And I said, "Well, who are they?" She said, "This I cannot tell you."
Wow.
I said, "Well, I'm not coming to London. You got to tell me who they are." And she said, "Oh," I said, "Well, just give us the initials, see if I can guess." And she went, "Okay, so it's AC und the DC." And I said, "You mean AC/DC?" She went, "Scheiße, I have said too much." This is true. This was like I later knew her as what the boys called her Olga from the Volga.
Yeah.
And she was the secretary to the management. And I said, "I don't know, I've been bitten by the rock and roll bug once. I was in Geordie and I came away broke." And so about 20 minutes later, by the freakiest chance, a pal of mine rang up and he said, "Would you like to do an advert for some cash down in London?" And I went, "Oh, that sounds good." It was an advert for Hoover.
Mm-hmm. Sang a jingle, right? You got a little jingle.
That's right. And so I said, "Oh, that's on the same day." So I phoned this Olga back and I said, I can come in that night after I do my jingle." And she went, "Okay." So, and I drove down in a borrowed car because my car would never have made it. And just 50 miles outside of Newcastle, I had a puncture on the front tire on a brand new car. And it was not a good omen. I thought, this is not smelling good. So, but anyway, I went down and I did the Hoover advert. And then I went across town to Vanilla Studios in London, and I was sitting outside. Honestly, I was just going, gosh, I was in a little cafe having a cup of tea. I was going, I wonder if I should go in. I wonder if this is just going to be a waste of time. I'm 32 years old. I'm way past my sell-by date. I said, oh, bollocks. What's the harm? And I went in there, and as I said in the book, that walk across the road changed my life, I walked in, and there were me friends for the next 30 years, although we didn't know it at the time. And and was sat down, and Malcolm just said, what do you want to sing? And I said, oh, geez, how about Nutbush City Limits, which threw everybody out.
That's great.
They're going, what? I said, Nutbush City Limits, Tina Turner, the Key of Air. How about that? So it was a wise choice, because I threw them off kilter. Rather than me being on the back foot, we were all on the back foot. And Malcolm started playing it, and boy, oh boy, then the band joined in. It was the best version I've ever heard in my life.
How cool is that?
To this day, I've never heard a better version.
And then, and he, in the back of Brian's mind, he said, okay, this is the audition, and I got to go back to work. And so you were ready to leave.
Yeah,
and
I said, thanks, guys. I sang Rosie as well, and then I said, and I finished my beer, and I said, well, guys, that's fantastic. I said, wait till I tell the boys in my little pub band. I had a little pub band up there. Yeah. I said, they're not going to believe this. I said, well, thanks very much. It's been a real pleasure. Lovely to meet you. And I was walking out the door, and they said, where the hell are you going?
Where are you going? Yeah.
I said, I'm going home. I said, I've got to open the shop in the morning. And they came and got us back, and they said, you can't leave. You just can't leave. And I said, mate, I have to. I said, give us a call if you need anything. So I drove back to Newcastle, about a 5-hour drive. You can imagine what was flying through my mind. No, it couldn't be. Do you think? Nah, don't get your hopes up. Nah, in fact, forget about it. All these kind of things going through your brain. And, of course, the very next day, they rang us back and said, would you like to come back down and give it another shot? And, a couple of more songs that we've got. And I did, and then they kept us there that time, though. They said, you're not getting out this time. And then I left after a couple of days, and then the next day they rang us up and they said, would you like the gig? And I jumped up and down. I had a bottle of whiskey in my hand at the time, funnily enough. And there was nobody in the house. I couldn't tell anybody. So I just had to sit, and I told Malcolm that rang me, and I said, listen, mate, just in case this is a bit of a hoax, would you give me a ring back? In about 5 minutes, and he said, sure. And he did do, and that was it. So that was the story of that very eventful 5 days of my life. Man. Very eventful.
And then they put you on salary for 6 weeks, kind of, not 6 weeks, 6 months, just to kind of...
absolutely. They just said, listen, we'll put you on salary for... Well, everybody was on salary. The band didn't have any money. We weren't broke, but they certainly, didn't have any cash to speak of. They were doing all right, but everybody was on a salary. And... So they said for 6 months, and if it doesn't work out, I said, I'm a big boy. I can understand if it's not going to work. I'll just bugger off.
And then this is the other thing, Brian. It's amazing is that you guys, because of budget for a lot of reasons, 6 weeks total to record Back in Black, and it's all new material. Basically, you guys came up with.
It was. That was probably the most amazing period of my life. I mean, full stop. It was too quick for me to even think about being nervous. I mean, the guys were just going, here, Brian, there's a riff. Write some words to that, would you please? And I began, oh, Christ. And of course, it was one every day. So I wrote a song a day. I believe it or not. And I mean, I was getting really worried that they were starting to sound all the same, and thankfully, they weren't. There was this lovely change in pace of each one of them, and but it was just kind of strange the way I sat down and the words just come tumbling out of my fingers. You know, writing them down on a piece of paper. It's never happened since. I don't think it'll ever happen again.
And this is also something that was going throughout every AC/DC fan's mind as we lost Bon Scott. We all knew the reality. It's so rare that a replacement, such a key figure, a replacement's going to do as well.
Yeah,
and then
it's unheard of, really.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then you come to this country, and as you know, I did an interview with Bon Scott, got to know him and knew the guys back during the Highway to Hell days. And I believe the second show, maybe the first show, was in Lakeland, Florida.
Yeah.
And Angus and Malcolm introduced me to you. I got the exclusive interview, your first interview in America with you. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember this, two things you did. I just want to thank you again. You may not even remember, but you took your hat off, and in a gold pen, you gave me your hat and you signed it to Allan Handelman.
That's right. I thought you used to wear it for a while.
I did. I wore it when you were on my TV show. I wore it. Yeah. And the other thing is, you said, "Come on, you're coming on stage with us." And
I shouldn't have done that.
You walked as the bell started to go off. I said, "You kidding me?" He said, "No, come on." And I got to experience what you hear as you go on stage and the raw of the audience. And then I kind of went off on the side of the stage and just watched in awe. But thank you for that.
That's a good. A lot of people never get to experience that. Sometimes I'll take a nephew or a friend. You know, like if there's a huge crowd out there, I love to just say, "Walk with me, just walk with us," and you can see them, you know, with a smile on their face as we leave the dressing room, and then down the tunnel, and the smile starts disappearing, and then the eyes widen, the jaw drops, and then they suddenly realize what a lucky person that I am to be able to go through that thing every night. Any musician in the world that comes up there to the stage and there's just a wonderful crowd waiting for them, you know, and just ready to rock it.
Yeah.
It's you know, you cannot buy that stuff, you know.
And you deserve it. Now, as in a contrast, we'll flash back to some of the earlier gigs. I don't know if this was with Geordie. You meet Chuck Berry, who you kind of thought a lot of, and he was a jerk.
Basically, he was, we were in Geordie, you know, and we were touring Germany, and they said, "Would you like to support Chuck Berry?" And we said, "Oh, you kidding me? He's a fucking legend, this man, you know." And, Chuck Berry's noted for being pretty tight-fisted, and he won't go on stage unless he has all of his money in a big wad, which he sticks in his trousers. He will not go on without it. The agent has to supply him with a band, you know, like a guitarist, bass guitarist, drummer. That's all he wants, and he probably doesn't even talk to them. In fact, I know he doesn't. It doesn't matter where he plays. He just get me a band on stage who know my songs. And then and he had no equipment, and we said, "Well, listen, you can use ours." And the agent went, "Oh, thank you so much." And he used it for a week, you know, for about 5 gigs. And it was at the end, and I never bothered him, and it was the end. He was sitting in his car ready to go, and I said, "Mr. Berry, is it possible I could get your autograph? My name's Brian." I said, "I was in your support band there, Geordie, and, you know, you've been using my equipment all week there. I hope it was all right." And he went, "I do one autograph a day, and I've already signed it." And I went, "Ow. What a shame." And then he said, I'll never forget, he said, "You're Scottish." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm English." And he said, "You are what I say you are." And I went, "You go and get," and then I won't tell you what else I said.
Yeah. It just goes to show you the different temperaments you meet.
You do. It's the same in life. You always get the nice guys and the strange ones. Let's put it that way.
Well, you know, the other great car story is so many great car stories you share. I think that one of the best ones, in fact, I have a recording of it that I'm going to air as we put the special together. But the story when you went to visit Cliff, and this is the Land Rover, the great story about this SUV in North Carolina during a deluge. Talk about that.
you know, poor old Cliff had cut all the tendons in his hand.
Oh, yeah.
And a freak accident. It was just, you know, we were very worried, and so was he, that he might never, ever play again.
This was about what,
about 2007.
Okay.
Around about there. And I said, Cliff, I'm coming up to visit you. And he went, oh, thanks, mate. You know, but he was full of that Percocet, or whatever they call it, these painkillers.
Right, Percocet or something.
Yeah, something like that. And anyway, so I drove up, you know, about 850 miles or whatever it is, and I brought me trailer, me Airstream, and towed by this Land Rover LR3. And we're camped in a beautiful campsite, just about a half a mile from Cliff's house. You know, Cliff wanted to stay with him. I said, listen, Cliff, you've got enough on your plate. You know, he had all these machines in there to make his hand move. And so anyway,
wow.
So we're camped by this beautiful little brook. I'm sorry, mate, I know what's coming. And, and it was just gorgeous. The brown trout were jumping. And
this is the Smoky Mountains of North Carolina, right? And
it was just gorgeous. And we phoned up Cliff and his missus, you know, to come on down. We're going to cook dinner for them. And Cliff said, this is the first time I'm coming out. And he came down and you know, hugged the old gitty, you know, and he was just outdoorsy. And he sat under the awning of the of the Airstream, and we set the table up. What a beautiful setting. I mean, you couldn't wish for anything more. I had the steaks on the barbie, you know, and everything was cool. A nice bottle of wine out, and then all of a sudden something happened. I don't know. Somebody switched the light off in the heavens, and it was the side thing of one of the big hurricanes that was coming through in 2007. Anyway, and it came down in buckets. And the water caught on the top of the awning, and it had collapsed, and it nearly killed Cliff.
This is like in the middle of the night, right?
No, this was early evening.
Okay.
This was about 8 o'clock, you know. And then Georgiana's wife said, "Come on, Cliff, we better get you home before you get killed." And it was just impossible. So they went home, and we put the awning back away and everything out of the way, and we got in the caravan and just said, well, we'll just see what happens. And of course, 2 o'clock in the morning, it was up past the axles, the water. And the guy whose campsite it was had a bullhorn saying, evacuate everybody out, just leave the vehicles, follow me, because it was a very steep road to get out of there. And I said, bollocks to that. I said, this is brand new. So I hooked up the Airstream to this thing, and we started moving out in about 2.5, 3 feet of water across a bridge which you couldn't see anymore, and then up this hill. And I'm telling you, this little thing, we got to everybody else thought we were nuts, but we got to the top of the hill with absolutely no problem at all in that little Land Rover. It's a cracking little vehicle it was.
It is.
But it was exciting, I must admit. It was probably the dumb thing to do, but it was a lot of fun doing it.
The racing side of you, lots of stories. Going back to a great story about your dad. Well, it's not really about your dad, but I think your dad was the hero in the whole thing. You just got your provisional license. You kind of went off with a friend to a race, and then you're heading back, and it's raining, and it's late. And you knew you were going to get screwed. You were so scared when you got in the house, but your dad was so cool about it. Tell everybody.
Yeah. Well, it was, with your provisional license, you have to have
adult.
You have to have an adult driver with you.
Right.
And of course, we snuck off because we thought Pops was going to be working a lot of hours at the steelworks, and so we went looking for this racetrack called Croft Autodrome. It took me forever to get it. And anyway, we got back. We're driving back, and it rained so heavily up there, and it's only got one windshield wiper. and it works off a vacuum. So when you put your foot, there was a Ford Popular, the car, and when you put your foot on the accelerator, of course, it just didn't hardly work at all. That's
exactly right. I had a Ford, hand-me-down Ford. It was a 56 Ford, and it was every time you give it gas, the windshield wipers would slow down. You're right.
Well, that's the work of a vacuum.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was a big roundabout on this road, and I didn't even see it, and I just went straight over the dirt and the mud, and oh, what a state. And of course, I got back at night and late, 10 tired, and I didn't have a key then. I knocked on the door for me mum, and there was my old man, and he said, "Where have you been?" I said, and I lied. I've been to George's house listening to music, Dad. And of course he looked over my shoulder, and this car was covered in mud. It was just covered, and he went, and he saw me look on my face, and he said, "Did you learn your lesson?"
Did you learn your lesson?
Dad. He said, "Go on, get in and get a cup of tea."
Oh, man, that's when you love your dad, man.
Yeah, he was a good lad. He just looked, and he could tell I was shaking, and he, said, "I never did it again. I'll tell you."
When you went with AC/DC, of course, no one tried to stop you. They didn't really encourage you to be a singer, but they didn't stop you. Did he really get to ever comment on the success of AC/DC and you?
He was a strange man, my dad. He was very begrudging in his prayers, and because he thought people might get big-headed or something. It was just the way he was. It's just a different generation, He's an ex-sergeant major from the British Army, very strict upbringing, but, the old saying, hard but fair. He made sure everybody got the same, and the kids.
I see.
And he was very begrudging. He was proud as punch.
Yeah,
he was proud,
so
proud, but, he'd just nod his head and grunt, Very good.
Right.
And that was it. And that was praise enough from him.
Now, let's go back to racing. This is the big Sebring to you was, oh my God, what a story. Share that story, and then we'll talk about some of the races you got coming up and some of the things and the great cause that you're working for too. But talk about Sebring. You didn't even know you won. No,
I didn't have a clue. That's how excited I was. It was the big race, the 4 hours, and and off I went. And no, that could have been the 1 hour you're talking about. I won the 1 hour and the 4
Oh, maybe that is it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I got in the car, and lots of things happen in 1 hour races. You have to come in, refuel, and people out the front, come out second or third, and it's very difficult to keep, tabs on it. That's why you have the scorers and markers. And I remember going out and just getting in the groove. I was in the groove, and I just became one with the car, and I was running. But I had a small car. It's just 4-cylinder against some real big 5-liter V8s and all of that. But the car's very light and good. But I remember, the checkered flag was out, which it is even if you've come 3rd, 4th, or 5th, 6th, 25th, it's still out. And I drove back to my pit, and I sat and I said, "Well, where's everybody?" I wondered where everybody was, and I'm sitting in this car. And then I took my helmet off, and I just said, "Would Brian Johnson please come back to the winner's circle?" But I didn't know where it was. So there I was in this race car, driving around the back of the pits, trying to find it. And then we came round, and I thought I just got a podium place, but I had in fact won the race. So I was in such a zone, I wasn't paying any attention, and I'd won the race. So that was a thrill I'll never forget. That is so cool. And a thrill coming up. This is a dream come true. You're going to be in the 24-hour... The 24 Hours of Daytona. It's the 50th running, and it's every man's dream. Yeah. To run in this race. It's the second biggest race in the world, really. The first being Le Mans. The 24 Hours of Le Mans in France, Belgium. And, to be able to just participate in this thing here, you've got to be good enough to get in, or they won't allow you out there. So, but a good friend of mine, Byron Defoe, said, "Do you want to do it, Brian?" I said, "Well, we're both getting on a little bit in years." And he said, "Well, let's show the world we can do it." And I said, "Okay." So we've got 2 other drivers, Elliot Forbes Robinson, who's a legend, who's 67. Yeah. And Jim Pierce, and what we're doing, we're tying in with rather than just do it, we just want to finish. We know we're not going to win against these big pro teams, but we just want to do it. And what we're going to do is call it the Highway to Help. There's a wonderful pediatric children's hospital for cancer. With pediatric children, so I'm saying the same thing, but it's in Chattanooga, and it's called the Austin Hatcher foundation.
The Austin Hatcher?
Hatcher.
Okay.
It's fantastic because nobody gets charged anything. It's all free.
Right.
And that refuse nobody. To me, in my eyes, that's fantastic. But they need money. So we're going to try to raise the awareness of this, I mean, these guys actually go to the homes of the kids, the parents, and look after them as well, because it's pretty traumatic to have a young kid and, you find out they have cancer and, and it's haven't got long, or maybe try to help them get through it or whatever. So we're going to do this, and what we're going to open up this text line, which is 2232, and you can pledge something there. And I know at times are tough, and people can't afford much, So we don't care if it's 10 cents or $10. We just don't care as long as people are rooting for it. And if you can't afford anything, just cheer the team on, and we'll see if we can finish the 24 hours. But the big unveiling is in Chattanooga on the 5th of November, so that's going to be good because all the congressmen and everybody's rooting for this little team, the little car that could. So, but it's a prototype motor car. It's the cars that are up at the pointy end of the race. So
now this is another race. Is this the same race we talked about? One in January and one.
Yes, this is January 28th to 29th. We start 3:00 in the afternoon. January 28th, and it finishes at 3:00 in the afternoon. Or is it 4? I'm not sure. On the 29th.
Okay,
so
and November 5th is when you're going to be unveiling and showing
the car.
The car. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So, but it's going to be fun. We're putting a lot of our own money in. We don't have the big sponsorships that these big pro teams do. So, we're going to be picking up as much sponsorship as we can as we go along. And but all the money will go to this.
Yeah, we are going to and get that out there and remind people.
Yeah,
and this
come on, guys, all you people out there, you got to root on for the old guys.
You bet. And this is going to go right up through January. You're going to be taking texts on that, right? And
yes, absolutely. I don't know when it's up and running yet. I think it's going to be up and running in a few days. I know they're going to get it up as quick as they can. Obviously,
sure. They
want to make as much money as they can for this wonderful.
Well, it's good. We got plenty of time to talk about it and get it out there. It is so cool. Listen, a couple more stories here. That marriage between the two, and again, it's Brian Johnson, that unmistakable voice. You can tell it in an instant. Rockers and Rollers is the book that came out. A Full-Throttle Memoir came out about a year ago. It is a great book. It's gotten great reviews. I really recommend you get the audiobook because it's not, like I said earlier in the interview, it's not somebody reading what they wrote. This is a guy who's actually talking to you, and you'll hear some samples, but it's out. I recommend it. It's a lot of fun. It is a great book.
The paperback is coming out in a couple of weeks.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that was just a hardback that came out. Now the paperback's coming out to coincide with the race and all of that. So,
a couple of quick stories on the guys and cars. When it comes to cars, Phil, nobody in the band wanted to drive with Phil because he was such a
he's a maniac,
a reckless driver, kind of.
Well, he's not so much reckless; he's just a maniac. I mean, when I talk about him in the book, I'll just say when Phil goes on the roads and he's one of his fast cars, he treats other road users as entertainment. It's his entertainment to scare the living crap out of anybody that's within 5 feet of him. And he's such a wonderful character, But I remember he bought this beautiful BMW M1 when it just come out in the early 80s. And he said, I'm going to drive it from London to Paris, where we were recording. Oh, and he said, I should be there by about 4 o'clock this afternoon. We said, we'll see you then, Phil. Of course, it's 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Gosh darn it, I wonder if he's all right. Where the hell is he?
Yeah.
He finally turns up in a taxi. Said, where's the car? And he said, that bastards. He said, I pulled in for some gas. And he said, in Paris, the gas is benzol, and benzene. Benzene is diesel.
Oh, no.
Yes, he did.
He
He filled it up with diesel. And yeah, I think the car drove about 5-6 miles, and it split it to a standstill. So that's Phil. But now I think Phil's got one of the biggest car collections of anybody. He's just a car fanatic.
Cliff, of course, is in the cars. He's had some hard luck with cars. And Malcolm, cars, they didn't really care much about. It's like
couldn't give a flying pot.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
And same with Angus.
He doesn't even have a license. I never knew that till you shared it in the book.
No, Angus had Angus made his immortal lines when he said... he said it was, on the last tour, I thought there was hope. He said, "Hey, Jonna, what's that car there?" And his magazine, I said, "Oh, that's a Mercedes SLK coupe." And he went, "I like that." He said, "It's a nice car." He said, "How much is it?" I said, "It's $68,000-$70,000, something like that." And he went, "Nice." He said, "What's this one?" I said, "Well, that's a convertible. Of the same car, it's a convertible." He said, "How much is that then?" And I said, that's nearly $100,000. And he said, "What?" He said, "How can you pay out more money for half a car?" And that's what every time I say a convertible now, I count it up. I go, "Look at that, that's a nice half a car."
Yeah, half a car.
But that's Angus. He's never had a car. He didn't want one. He doesn't care.
Yeah, he just cares about his music,
guitars, and his pen.
And that's right.
That's it.
This is first of all working on the new album. I guess the guys are doing that now, going over riffs. Possibility for a new album in a year or two.
Yeah, well, I just had dinner with Malcolm in London about 10 days ago, and he's looking chipper, and he was just saying, we're just looking at each other. He's going. I said, "You all right, man?" He said, "Well, I'm a little bit bored." I said, "Good, so am I." I said, "At least I've got me racing to keep me tail up." I said, "Just give us a shout when you need us, me son." He said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm just working on a couple of tunes and riffs and see what happens, So I'm hoping that be getting a phone call, sometime after Christmas or something,
I want you to share one story more from the book, and then just a closing question. This is a time I remember very well, because I remember defending bands like you and just a lot of heavy metal bands when Tipper Gore was doing the PMRC thing. And I did not know the story till you read Rockers and Rollers about there was actually a time when you thought you were going to get shot at. Tell everybody that story.
It was like the Christian Taliban. It was scary, man. I mean, we were driving into Springfield and we're on a tour bus, we all traveled together. And then it was a very early 80s time. And Big John, our security man, he said, "Listen, lads, heads up." He said, "We've just had a message that on the CB that the whole stadium arena has been ringed by these women and parents with Tipper Gore at their head. I mean, and they're protesting against the band coming in, and they reckon there's a couple of really angry people out there with rifles who are going to shoot at the bus." And I said, "Well, let's do the right thing. Let's turn around and run away." And Marlon Anger gone, "Nah," he said, "we'll have to do the gig." I said, "Man, I don't want to die on a bus in the middle of nowhere." And so the driver stopped and he said, "Listen, I got an idea." So he scrolled the front of the bus down to Young Singers for Christ, down on the front of the bus. So we drove in that way. We're still there on the floor just in case. And anyway, we got there safely, and we went round the back end, and there, sure enough, there was all these people with holding hands, singing, "Stop the Antichrist Devil's Children." I said, which was AC.DC. That's what they called us, Antichrist Devil's Children. I mean, even we couldn't have thought of that one. And I just said, "I'm going to go out here," and I left. I said, "I've got to see this myself." And I was walking around, and this woman said, "Come, join us. Join us. We're here to stop the devil's children." So I went in the line, and I'm holding hands, and I'm going, "Who's coming?" And she said, "AC AC/DC, the Devil's Children. I said, are they? I said, I'm in them. I said, and if my mother was here and she heard you calling me a devil's child, she'd whack you one.
I don't know if I ever told you this story. This is probably the most angry I've ever gotten on the air where I showed it to the audience. A guy calls up. He claims he was at the same one of the concerts I was at, AC/DC, and at the end he says, and he had no idea. He probably wasn't a listener to my show, but somebody said, hey, this guy on the radio is talking about AC/DC and rock and roll. So he's probably never heard of me before. So he doesn't know my background with the band. He calls, he says, I just want everyone to know I was at the AC/DC concert. I think he said Charlotte. He says, this is something people don't know, but when the show was over, you could see Brian asking people to come up on stage and bow at the altar. And he was trying to indoctrinate people. The band was trying to indoctrinate people into Satan. And I blew up. And I said, I was there. That's a lie. Why are you saying that? And I'm getting the emotion now. This was 15, 20 years ago. Anyway, that's the kind of mentality.
Yeah, that's what you were up against me, son. It's just, religion scares the hell out of me. It really does. The religious nuts. I'm sorry, I should rephrase that. Religious fanatics scare me, because they tell lies more than anybody else. Mm-hmm. They really do spread some nasty, malicious gossip about it. But you know what? We got through it. People suddenly realized it had nothing to do with anything like that. Absolutely. It was just these moral majority or moral rights people for parents or something. It was mental. I mean, it was the laughing stock of the whole world again. The rest of the world just said, who are these people? And
so embarrassing for rock and roll fans in that town that had to see you be subjected to that.
Yeah. I mean, these were the people who burnt the Beatles albums.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that? Yeah. Well, it was good for the Beatles. Everybody went back out and bought another copy.
No, and it's so counterproductive because all they do is not attract people. They turn away people. Listen, I don't want to overstay my time here. Last question, and this is something that could be for anybody listening, whatever you're doing in life. It doesn't have to be that you have to be an entertainer, but when it comes to getting in the zone, whether it's before a show or before a race, talk about getting in the zone. Is there some ritual? Is it different for racing as opposed to singing? What is getting in the zone for Brian Johnson before a big performance or race?
Before a big performance, I do the same thing every night. And if I didn't, I think the boys would feel uncomfortable. I change into me shirt, my jeans, stage thing, and I sing the first song in my head, just pacing back and forward. I mean, I know the words backwards, but it doesn't matter. I do it every night, and then I'll go into the shower area, and I just let out a big scream.
Yeah, sure. Get the voice.
And then, other guys do go through the, I just let out a big whelp, and I'll go. And then I'll come out again, and the guys are going, good to go? I'm going, I'm ready to rock. Ready to rock. And then every night, we'll get ready, and Big Tim will come in, and he'll say, okay, guys, that's it. Ready? Let's go. And then every night, Angus will just go, I'm following you. And I'm always the first one out. And I'm always walk down there with me, me chin out, just, just getting it pumped up, and it's just what we do, I mean, it's nothing special with a race car. I guess I just try to shut the noise out. I mean, I hate it when I get in the car and somebody's going, excuse me, can we get and I just pretend I don't hear them. Because you cannot. It's bad luck, kind of.
That's right. Once you're in that zone, yeah.
Yeah, you're in your car, you're strapped in, and, there's lots of fast guys out there who want to beat the hell out of you. So, you really, and you've got to concentrate, so it's a different kind of thing for that. I just go in on myself, imagine the track, imagine the first corner, what I'm going to do.
You see yourself making the turns. You see yourself winning.
Yeah, you sure do. You know, you try to, you know, you just nuzzle right in, so you're part of the car rather than sitting in it. You know, you really, if you're part of the car, it's just a wonderful feeling. You know, you trust that everything's right, and then off you go, me son. And when the flag drops, the BS stops.
Well, we're going to remind everybody about November 5th when you unveil the new car. Of course,
thank you. That would be great. If we could just raise some awareness for this thing, I think it's just, you know, I mean, it's here, right here in America, and charity begins at home. I'm a firm believer in that.
And whatever you can afford. Here's the text number, 2232.
That's
2232. And then we're going to repeat this right into January. And January 28th and 29th is the big race. And I got to tell you, man, you and I and the band go back a long way.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how much I appreciate so much you guys always giving me a chance to talk to you and let my audience know what's going on.
You're more of a buddy than a DJ.
Well, absolutely. It's family. It is family. And
yes, sir.
So thank you for being on the show.
Oh, that's all right, me son. Anytime. And thanks everybody out there for listening to me blether. Anytime at all, me son.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.